Hey everybody, welcome to Workforce Gaming. I'm Brad, here with Doug.
Hey.
Doug recently just finished up Returnal,
Yes.
the new roguelite, whatever, from
Hmm.
Housemarque, PS5 exclusive. I'm pumped about this game. I
Yeah.
really wish I was playing this game. I'm also very happy I'm not playing this game based on what I've heard about it. So,
Yeah.
I guess I kind of just dive right in and just your general thoughts about Returnal, because I think I could sit here and ask you questions for about the next 2 hours because I have a lot of.
Sure.
I'm very curious about this game because I feel like they did a really good job of like holding everything back and giving you very little bits to go on with
Hmm.
all the pre-release information. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
just start out with what exactly is this? How does it go? Like I know basics, but
Okay. My first general impression of the game is that it's a very, very, very weird game that, like, I'm a person who likes roguelikes, and people are just like, it's a roguelike, and then just kind of like leave it there. Even
yeah,
for a roguelike, it's a very, very strange game. Um, to the point where, like, when I finished the game and I got the final cutscene, I was thinking to myself, like, I don't know how I feel about this game because I enjoyed it, but there's so many weird little pieces to it that it felt more like I'd play like one of these strange ass indie games I've played like recently.
mm-hmm.
It felt more like that when I was done. It's like, okay, I need to think about how I felt about this than how at the end of it, you know, what I didn't come off at the ending cutscene going like, yeah, that was the
We
best
did it.
game I played. Yeah, exactly. Like I didn't come off feeling like amazing. I was like, okay, I enjoyed that, but um, so I guess kind of you did ask the question, what is Returnal? So Returnal is a action shooter that is probably like one of the best controlling third person shooters ever made, period. It
That does
feels
not shock me.
freaking yeah, it feels freaking amazing. Like I think people are comparing it to Vanquish, and even Vanquish I thought was clumsier than this. Just how
Ooh,
smooth it feels to like move around, how fast you move. Everything is just like so precise. It just the feel of it feels really, really, really good. I think of a game the opposite of being like Assassin's Creed. With Assassin's Creed, like when you press square, they do some like cool animation, that sort of thing. Like everything you do in this just feels so pinpoint accurate. Of like, yes, I got hit because I clearly dodged at that 35-degree angle on how I pushed it, and maybe should have dodged at a 60-degree angle. But like, I definitely felt like that was me who'd made that mistake, as
yeah.
opposed to anything the game did. Um, so it's like this really, really well controlling first person shooter. But what it's wrapped up in is the roguelike aspect, which is essentially you go until you die, and the game is extremely hard. And then when you die, you restart back at the beginning. It basically resets all of your equipment. Any of the weapon upgrades you got doesn't matter anymore. And the only thing that kind of carries forward is every once in a while you kind of hit like a little story point where you'll get a piece of equipment, and the piece of equipment does carry forward you for like the rest of the run. So, for example, I'll give you a really basic one. It'll show in the video that I have. You get something that's very similar to like a hook shot, which is
Yep.
essentially you look at a point that's like it's like literally a bright light. You look at it, you hit a button, and then you can like zip to that line.
Mm-hmm.
So I got that. I don't know how many hours. I'm not trying not to like stay away from spoilers, but before the run I got it, and I just didn't have access to that. So when I go back, I now see these points of lights like, oh, I can get up there now. Okay, now I can do this, or you'll get something else. So it's kind of like, okay, on my next run now, I'm actually kind of more powerful because I wouldn't have gotten that chest up there otherwise.
Is it all exploration stuff, or are these like shortcuts?
Um, So, oh boy. See, this is where it gets weird with roguelites. In a roguelike, you just go level by level and nobody worries about anything. And then you restart and that's it. But
Yeah, which I
in
hate, which
return,
I hate, I hate, I hate, I hate, I hate, I hate.
yeah,
I
so
want
Returnal,
shortcuts. I want shortcuts.
so Returnal's really weird because once you beat a boss in a and like, so there's these things called biomes or essentially levels. Once you beat a boss in a biome, you can essentially pretty much skip to that level to wherever you had beaten the boss. You always have to go through a majority of like level one though. So like, okay, let's say
Okay.
there's 3 levels. I have beaten the level 1 boss. After I beat the level 1 boss, I don't have to beat the level 1 boss again. I can just get to the level 2 gate, go through it, and I'm on to level 2. And that level 2 gate can kind of be anywhere in the level. So like sometimes it's earlier, sometimes it's later. But like once you beat that level 1 boss, you can pretty much warp to level 2. You'll always have to play a little bit of the first level though.
So, so are there gates to every level in the first area?
Um, yes, which I did not know until recently. Let's
Oh,
like
so
so
that might have been was that a spoiler?
no, I don't think so. I don't
Okay.
think so. It's just
Okay.
it's just because it's really because it's kind of important like how the roguelike aspects of the game
Yeah.
In that you can like essentially skip certain levels depending on what it is. But the thing is, and what the game is set up is like you're gradually picking up power ups and things to make your character more powerful. So you can skip ahead, but you're like really giving up like a lot of power to do that. So it's something where it's like you don't have to, do this stuff, but you can.
So
like,
could I play? So could I play level 1 and then like go, okay, well I'm going to play level 2 to get my power ups, and then I'm going to jump to like level 5 boss and skip 3 and 4, or is it like?
It's the some of the mechanics of the game. I'm trying. It's weird. The amount of levels is kind of like a spoiler. It's really strange. It like has to do with story stuff. And like there's kind of a big moment where I thought I beat the game, and I turned out I didn't beat the game.
For all of you to know, that's about 2 hours in, because Doug texted me, "Think I just beat Returnal. That was dumb."
Dude, I no joke, and I know people will not believe this. I beat the third, like people who play this game, I beat the third biome in my first run. Like first run through the game, first time I booted up. Like I didn't even get to the story point where like she dies and she wakes me like, oh my god, I'm in a time loop. Like I never saw that cutscene stuff because I got through the first 3 worlds on my first run, which is insane. And I inadvertently end up skipping a lot of the game as a result, because that first 3 levels, like you're expected to spend many hours on that. And then in 2.5 hours, I got through that first chunk. And then there's like later levels and that sort of thing. But there's kind of like a very clear point, and that's why I'm trying to be like a little cagey about it, like with the levels.
It just came
that.
out. We don't want to get anything specific.
Yeah, exactly. I think the thing I do want to talk about though, because like that's the game, and then the basic gameplay of just like you running and shooting just feels so cool. The thing I really love in a game is a good dodge. The dodge in this is like effing incredible, because when you're dodging, like you're doing kind of like you're doing a dodge. But like if you tap it, depending on how long you hold it, it's how far you dodge. So you can do like short dodges and like really long dodges, and they kind of play with that a little bit, but it gives you so much control, because like if like let's say an enemy sent out like a ring, there's a lot of colorful bullets and stuff in this, and one of the things I like to put out these like just big rings that kind of emanate from an enemy or emanate from like a point, like from a bomb. So there's big rings coming. So if I just want to make a short hop over that, I can just jump, tap the dash, and go over pretty easily. Sometimes there might be a ring and then like bullets behind that ring, like so there's like just a wider width of bullets essentially I have to dodge through. So you can hold and dodge through both the ring and through that, and that dodge can just go through anything. So the thing I just think is really funny about this game, because a lot of people talk about the difficulty. I think it's difficult. Like I'm definitely not denying it. I don't think it's harder than Demon Souls or any of the Souls games by any means. But I think it
that's
feels...
a weird bar to go to though. Like sure. This isn't hard. It's not harder than like the game people say is the hardest game.
No, it's hard. But that's what I'm saying. But I think people are kind of like afraid. It's like, oh, is it as hard as Demon Souls? It's just a different skill set. I think like very much entirely. While Demon Souls is all about being patient, this has like zero patience. Like you don't have time to be patient in this one. Which is cool. It's cool. It's not like even Bloodborne, which I like a lot. It feels like you still have to wait for that right moment. And this one, it's just like you better be shooting all the fucking time.
I like that. Well, and I think a lot of what you're describing too is, for those of you who don't know, Housemarque, who made this, is basically known for just making games with ridiculously good gameplay. Yeah, and that's it, because they've always done arcade games where it's just like running around shooting, all that stuff. So all this control stuff, I mean, that's the stuff that like as soon as it says Housemarque, is locked in. There's no question that's not going to be great. That's what they do. That's what they've done since. I mean, I don't even know how long they've been around. Is PS3 era Super Stardust? I don't know if that's their first one. That's I think their first real big one. But I know that's been made with DualSense. Is that dodge on the haptics? Is the dodge on the haptics too? Because I know the gun
no. It's just circle. The haptics are kind of weird. It's kind of boring to explain. It just makes you shoot a little bit different, but it feels good, so don't worry about it.
That's kind of every time I hear somebody describe the DualSense stuff, that's all I think about is it feels good. Okay, it's like I'm going to describe to you what this tastes like. It's like you're not going to do a good job. Good try, but no, just give it to me.
The one thing I will say that the DualSense they do that is very, very cool, that I really do love, is the cutscene DualSense is in fucking sane.
You're just watching like the movie play, right? The cutscene, you're just watching it play. What does it do?
So for example, I'll just give like a really simple example is like the spaceship flies across the screen from like left to right or like off in a 40 degree, and you can feel it like you can feel the rumble passing from the left side of the controller to like the right side of the controller. There's a part where they're like flicking switches. She's like the ship is crashing and she's like flicking switches, and you can feel the little switch flicks in the controller. But like instead of like I feel like when they did with like Miles, like, oh, it's the train moving and that's all you feel, but it's like every single little cut scene in here, they like, what's the setting for this one cut, and let's make the DualSense match that one cut. Yeah, which is really cool. I really enjoyed it, and the 3D audio is insane. And actually, like the 3D audio, I didn't really know. I noticed I was like, oh, this is really good audio, but it really helps in the gameplay of identifying where enemies are and where items are, because certain items will make noises. And enemies will obviously make noises, and it really does help you. Like, I can tell the guy is behind me to the left. I can tell there's a guy off to my right, sort of thing. Because you have like a little mini map, but like when you're shooting, like you don't have a lot of time to take a look at the mini map, and it's going crazy. Back on the difficulty though, the one thing I think that makes it a little bit different than some of the more difficult games I've played is that it can feel very overwhelming. I think that's if you just like look at people play this game, it just looks overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the part where like you're gonna screw up. It's like if you feel overwhelmed, you're gonna get screwed up. But like because you have such a generous dodge, and sometimes when you see like a wall of bullets coming towards you, like, oh, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna dodge this stuff? You can actually like, well, actually that big wall just means I have to dodge through it one time. Sort of thing. If it's a big flat wall coming towards me, I have to dodge it one time. When it's like a spray of bullets in the air, it's like, well, actually 90% of those bullets actually aren't really a danger to me at all. It really reminds me of like shmup games. Or
I was just gonna say, I feel like some of the videos I've seen makes me feel very shmup, or again, just those classic arcade games, those shmups that you really only need to pay attention to your ship, and you really can kind of ignore 75% of the screen. And I think this is the first game, and again, I haven't played it, but just from watching the little bits and pieces that I have to try and get a handle on it, that's kind of the feeling that I get, is that it's like, okay, we're taking that shmup aesthetic where it's just shit flying everywhere.
Yeah.
Really, most of it doesn't matter, though.
Yeah, exactly. Which makes it like really aesthetically awesome looking. So so for an example, I think there's some like really cool stuff they do with the rings, like late in like very, very later levels, where it's just like, it's like bunches of rings kind of like emanating from an enemy or something like that. So it's really cool, but like really like you see the big ring go out, but like the only part you need to deal with is the one little bit of the ring that's going to hit you. So I think that's where a thing where people can look at this game and like I think that's where a lot of people are saying it's super hard, is because it is easy to get overwhelmed, but it's like as long as you're always be shooting, then you're gonna be okay. I will say, like, hey, if you don't like hard games, like don't touch this one. It's hard. It's just straight up hard. Yeah, I did.
And it's a roguelike, so you don't make any progress. It's hard and you don't make any stupid progress because it's stupid.
Yeah,
I hate it.
And the thing that's weird is like, I don't think it's like any harder than any other roguelikes. I think the thing that makes it hard is like what I'm going to call like the war of attrition, because in Hades, if I boot up Hades right now, I'm going to beat Hades in 25 minutes. If I boot up Returnal, it'll take me 2 or 3 hours to beat Returnal.
Because that's just the length of a run?
Yeah. They're no joke. So like a single run. So it's basically like, in Hades, I need to be better in that 20 minutes than I need to be better in that 3 hours of Returnal. Yeah. Does that make sense? So like when I'm playing Demon Souls, like if I'm fighting a Demon Souls boss, I need to be like 1000% for that one boss. But I just have to be very good for all of Returnal. There's also like a lot of like pretty generous health items and like ways to mess with your health. And like if you're thinking about what, like that's the one thing I did like, is like really thought about like, okay, what are like the most critical items here if I'm buying and using items, and there's clever ways you can like burn items and use them in smart ways and that sort of thing. So it is cool. It's awesome. It is a roguelike though. I do want to talk about the setting though for a bit.
I'm curious about the setting in the story.
Yeah.
Because this is what got me hooked. This is where I just like, I'm seeing stuff and like, I am really struggling because I hate roguelites so much. Yeah. But everything else about this is just like 100% my thing.
Oh shit! Yeah, it is 100% your thing. I was playing this like this. This is Brad shit for sure. It is. So the setting. So it's like you crash land on an alien planet, and the alien planet. It really pulls. I think people say Geiger, but there actually is another artist that. Oh god, I can't remember his name. It's actually the one they did. What's that latest Xbox exclusive with a medium? Oh, the medium. The artist they used for the inspiration for the medium they clearly used here, which is not really Geiger-esque. It's much more colorful than that. But it's these really, really haunting forests and haunting spoilers and haunting spoilers and then haunting other spoiler areas that are really, really cool.
Is each biome like the classic like platformer deal of like, this is the fire level, this is the forest level?
Yeah,
is it kind of like that?
Yeah, it's kind of like that, but it's like weird alien version of that. So like,
yeah,
like I will spoil, the first level is the forest level, the second level is the desert level. Like, this is what it is. But I think just the aesthetics of it are just very creepy and oppressive and amazing, because the monsters you fight are just, all the monsters you fight are super, super cool looking. Like, they're like these weird tentacle things, and if you're familiar with like Cthulhu mythos and stuff, it's like, it's really neat creatures with tentacles and stuff, and it just looks insane. And like when you're fighting these guys, especially because they all kind of have like this sort of like squid likeness to them, so like when they're floating through the air, just have their tentacles dragging behind them, or they do like a sudden burst towards you, it kind of looks like a squid shooting towards you really fucking fast. But just seeing like, but they do a lot of cool stuff with the tentacles, like when like one of the enemies I like is when it's attacking you, it just kind of like floats forward and then it opens all its tentacles, so just make it's like a little squid head, but then this like giant ring of like tentacles around it, like pointing like whatever lasers at you and that sort of thing. The one thing
are all the enemy designs kind of squid tentacle-y things, or is there more variety than that? Because I feel like everything I've seen has been very tentacle-y, squid, that type of deal.
They're very tentacle-y, but like they're definitely very the thing is, like, it's funny because I could hear you, how you were asking that question, like, are all these enemies like really samey? And it's like, they're not. It's just like they pick this one theme and then just kind of like really blew it out with this one theme. So there's like they're all something like a little tentacle-y based, because it's all very Cthulhu. But it's just really gorgeous, and they play with it in lots of fun ways, and like, it just being attacked by a giant squid thing is actually very fucking scary sometimes.
and different. I feel like that's not something you see all the time.
Yeah, and talk like a little bit about the story. So obviously she's going through this time loop, but the one thing I think is kind of funny and that I haven't really seen with other time loopy sort of games is that you leave a corpse behind. But it plays a lot into the story. So many times you'll just come across like dead bodies that are you from a previous run, but it's a run you haven't necessarily done. So you're not actually sure like which run you're on in the storyline.
I was gonna say, I think I read that somewhere too. So you essentially, when this starts, you don't know if this is run 1 for it's Selena, right?
Yes. Yep.
So you don't know if this is run 1 for Selena or run 1,000. You don't know kind of how long she's been dealing with the situation. Right?
Yeah. And the thing that's like really neat is, so you pick up audio logs, and all the audio logs are from past Selenas or future Selenas. So there is like 10. Hey, this is Selena. I'm on my 10th loop in the thing, and like, so she has this like very curious thing about it, like curious about it. But then like once you get a little bit farther, and I would say even further, but they give you hints of this stuff like pretty early on, so I would say it's not spoilers, but like she goes through potentially many loops, and what is she like many loops later, sort of thing. And it's really, really cool. And every time you pick up an audio log, it's like really, you don't know which one you're gonna get. Like, oh, is this like inquisitive, I am space explorer Selena doing this planet, or am I just like completely worn out of this sort of thing?
So where does your actual character fit in, like the one that you're playing? Because I guess in my mind I'm picturing like you've got two very distinct areas there, which I feel like the way you're presented with Selena, that you are in that moment. Yeah. And again, I don't know how much like inner monologue there is, how much dialogue there is, or anything like that. Like, does it present her more as this optimistic one when you start, and after you die a few times, do you get more to that grizzled, jaded, like, oh, this is the worst thing?
Oh, interesting. No, whenever she's picking them up, she does respond to them sometimes. The ones she responds to more are the ones where it's like through many loops, and she's like, I don't want to become that person. So you see what she's going to be like in the future, and she's like, I don't want to be that person. So because like a lot of Cthulhu mythos stuff is, you know, Cthulhu mythos stuff, which is wrapped in madness and that sort of thing, and disjointedness. And it's really cool because I think that Cthulhu stuff, and I know it's been overplayed a number of ways, that sort of disjointed madness stuff like really fits well with the sort of roguelike repetition stuff. Yeah. And they do play with the story in kind of interesting ways as a result of that, because there are cutscenes that are presented very disjointedly. And there's like, I think the one thing that you keep seeing people have shown of like is the house. And there's a random house in the middle of some of your runs, and you can go in the house, and it's like her childhood home sort of thing. And then there's like little bits and pieces and that sort of thing of like you walk around the house, and there's like little sort of I wouldn't say it's not similar to PT. It's not as scary at all. It's just like, I think they obviously played PT, but I think it's less of, it's more just about like delivering little story bits. But the story is presenting you, like the little bits and pieces you get are all very disjointed. And then when I finish the game, they kind of reveal their hand of like what happened. It's still not 100% clear, but I think the more I think about the story, the more I like it. The more they kind of revealed what happens, the more I come into it with new eyes, kind of like Neo in the Matrix sort of thing. It's like, now I see this in the environment and that kind of thing.
That's how I'm dodging those bullets.
Yeah. They actually do. They do justify that in game in a fucking incredible way. That would be a humongous spoiler. But yeah, I can tell you offline if you're ever curious.
I guess just to go with that. And again, feel free to just shake your head and we can move on.
No, yeah.
So since you're hearing future ones and you've heard past ones, does the game imply that the runs that you're completing are back to back to back to back, or is it like your runs, like you could be doing run 7, 42, 26, 58, 137 and like and then like doesn't the future ones imply that like she doesn't get out, or do you eventually jump in front of those? And again, feel free to ignore all these questions if this is
I mean it's all pretty spoiler. I mean, I'll say I didn't feel her as a singular character growing, but through the audio logs you see her growth sort of thing. It's weird. That's what I'm saying. Like the story is so disjointed. It's like it's not like a typical story where it's like I see my character go through their hero's arc sort of thing. You never get that out of her. You just see bits and pieces of her scattered throughout the arc sort of thing is what I'm saying. So like but I would say it never feels like you're following the one on her path. Every time it resets, it does. But again, I would say it's not like, oh, I have the crazy version. You know what I mean? You never get that. I would say you get a very middle of the line sort of thing from her comments of like, I don't want to go in the future one or so far in the future one. And then the earlier one is so early that she's just kind of in the middle somewhere. And it's not, so I guess like as an individual character, you don't get a lot out of her, but you sort of like are picking up the bits and pieces of her across scattered throughout this mad world sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's neat, and the finale of it, I think the finale was just so incredible, and I really did like kind of the story reveal at the end of sort of what's going on, it's a weird game though. It's so weird. It's such a strange. Yeah, and like Risk of Rain, I feel like Risk of Rain or even other roguelites, it's like I like these for XYZ. Like Hades, I like the combat and the story is fun because it meets the thing. And like Risk of Rain, it's like I like the combat and I like that the things are random. But like Returnal, it's just like there's a lot of stuff going on in this game. It was funny. I was listening to other people talk about it. They're like, this game needs a few updates. And I was like, I see that as well. Like some of the mechanics stuff is like a little like the moment to moment shooting is really good, but there's this like kind of risk reward system, and like the rewards are never worth the risk. So like I did very well playing pretty conservatively throughout and not taking on these big risks sort of things. So I'm sure there's gonna be like a few like kind of tuning of that, but I mean, Brad personally, like it's a roguelike, like you're not gonna get away from that.
I know. Well, the first thing after we did this with Hades, the first thing I did is went out and bought Hades, and I played exactly like 4 hours of it, and have never gone back to it because I hate it.
Yeah, I actually, I think it's a good one to play. It would be like try Risk of Rain 2. Not you, but I'm just saying like if somebody's like, curious about this game, it's like, do I spend $70 on this? Like, go play Risk of Rain 2. Kind of similar game. Gives you a much better feel of what a roguelike game is like. And then if you're like, I like that stuff, I would like to see more, then I would go for, I think the reason I was so good at this game was just because like I beat the whole thing in 9 hours. I think the only reason I was so good at this because I played a shit ton of Risk of Rain, and it's like very similar of like when to play conservatively, when to go hard, and that kind of thing. It like still kind of all applies. So I don't know. I can see people just not beating this as well.
I want to wrap that up there. With I guess my question is, because I know there is some randomness to this, did you feel like that 9 hours came because of skill, or is there so much randomness, risk reward, that kind of stuff in here that you just kind of happen to play the cards right and get lucky?
Oh no, I'm good at this game. No. It requires so much skill out of you. Like Risk of Rain, I would definitely say like, you definitely feel like a little bit more of the randomness. In this one, like there's definitely some randomness that can either like help or hurt you, but it's not nearly as big as swings. Like in this one, it's like I had to be very good at this game to get as far as I did. I will definitely say like the buffs that got me there really help, and like understanding which things to prioritize, like health and resurrection items. Like once you know what those are, it's like, okay, I'm definitely gonna get those every time. Will definitely get you farther. But yeah, like just the amount of moment to moment skill you do in this game is effing insane. I think that's why it's really hard. It's just because it requires a lot of just controller gymnastics to play. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, we are Workforce Gaming. You can follow us on Twitter at Workforce Gaming. Subscribe to us wherever you're listening, and we will see you later.
Bye.